I remember the exact moment it clicked. Like a gentle sigh in my mind. A quiet unraveling of thoughts that had always seemed so tangled. I'm sitting across from him at our small kitchen table, that wobbly one with scuffed legs we've never bothered to fix, watching him as he fiddles with the corner of his napkin. The light coming in through the window is harsh and bright. It feels like it's dissecting every object in the room, every particle of dust, every crease on his face, and picking at my fingernails, inhaling too sharply. There's a tightness in my chest, a shape of tension I've come to accept as part of our everyday life together, like a permanent houseguest who refuses to leave. For so long, I wondered why he never seemed to catch the subtle shifts in my mood, why my carefully chosen hints slid right past him like water off a plate. I wondered if he just didn't care enough, or if there was a hidden reluctance behind his silence. I asked myself, again and again, why the comforting phrases I yearned to hear never arrived, why he preferred rigid routines over spontaneous escapes into the unknown, why he seemed utterly perplexed by my delight in small talk or my need to linger on the emotional texture of a memory. I can feel a lump in my throat, recalling those nights I ended up crying alone in the shower, hot water streaming over my face, masked tears blending into the steam. I carried so much resentment, feeling bruised by what I assumed was his refusal to meet me halfway. Yet there were these moments, scattered like tiny shells in sand, where he touched my hand lightly or pressed his head into my shoulder after a long day, and in those moments, I sensed a kind of devotion beneath his guarded exterior. But how to connect those fleeting instances of warmth to the rest of his strange patterns? Our old physician retired, and the new one asked a few unexpected questions. Casual queries that made me see my husband in a fresh light. She spoke openly about the adult autism spectrum, and as her words floated between us, my husband's hand resting quietly in mine, I felt something in my chest release. Not in a bad way, not at all. More like a tightly wound string finally giving permission to relax. I remember the hesitant look my husband gave me then, a gaze almost apologetic, as if he feared I'd be disappointed. I only squeezed his hand in return. But suddenly the memory of him meticulously sorting our spice jars or painstakingly scripting out what he'd say to my parents before our holiday visits hovered in my mind. The way he would stare at me blankly when I expected him to react with lively agreement. The subtle, careful tilt of his head when I asked him to guess what I felt. The slight terror and confusion that played on his face when I changed plans at the last minute. I closed my eyes and let the idea settle into my chest. It fit. It fit in a gentle, quiet way, as if a puzzle piece I never realized was missing had just snapped into place. Now as I watch him at the table, I see him differently. I notice how his eyes dart between objects, how he's bracing for my next move, as if trying to predict the unpredictable. All my old frustrations feel suddenly weightless, like balloons drifting toward the ceiling. I lean forward and imagine what the world looks like through his eyes. Maybe every sound is sharper. Maybe subtle facial cues feel like a secret language he never learned. Maybe my impulsive emotional outbursts seem baffling to him, a code he hasn't cracked. I sense that my old demands for him to behave more like me, more spontaneous, more talkative, more instinctively attuned to my moods, were cruel without my ever meaning them to be. It's as if I was expecting him to speak a language he never learned, and getting angry when he stumbled over the words. There's a slow warmth spreading through my chest now, a kind of compassionate ache. I no longer see his quietness as a deliberate barrier. Instead, it's a gentle request for clarity, a need for me to say exactly what I feel instead of implying it, to be patient with his routines and celebrate them as signposts of stability in a chaotic world. Perhaps he is loving me in ways I never understood, showing devotion by remembering the shape of my coffee cup handle, or carefully ensuring that the bath towels are folded the same way each time, as if to give me some hidden comfort. I realize I was never neglected or unloved. I just didn't know how to see it. I feel tears welling, but they aren't tears of hurt or frustration now. They're tears of release, as if an old knot in my chest has come undone. I stand up, walk around the table, and place my hand over his. He looks up, curious and a bit startled. I speak more softly than I've ever spoken before. I explain that I'm starting to understand. I don't say everything perfectly, but I try to be clear and honest. His shoulders relax fractionally. There is no grand gesture, no cinematic embrace, just a quiet recognition passing between us, like currents of empathy flowing silently. We're both learning a new language, one of careful listening, honest questions, and patience with each other's differences. I feel as though the walls between us are dissolving. In this moment, I know that compassion is not a reward for perfect understanding, but a willingness to step into another's inner world, even if just for a moment. We may never see eye to eye on all things, but I finally grasp that we process life in parallel, two minds observing, feeling, and trying to reach out, each in our own way. And as we sit there in the fading light, our hands still touching, I sense that the rough edges of our misunderstandings are softening into something kinder, something unmistakably human. It feels like forgiveness, like love, like an unspoken promise that we are in this together. And that's enough.